My name is Tiffany Willoughby-Herard, and I'm an associate professor at University of California, Irvine, and I'm a Detroiter. So that is Alondra Nelson's term from her book, Body and Soul. I'm really trying to follow Alondra Nelson there and to try to situate Black bodies and situate movement politics. The kind of sense that Blackness itself is not just fungible, which is like a really useful abstract term, but that Blackness is to be experimented on, and Black people are to be experimented on, and that's kind of what our existence is about, is what I was really trying to get at there, and signaling the connection to movement. Because what's happening in that paper around the Black Lives Matter movement was I was being asked or invited or given the opportunity to go and to talk about these deaths in custody, which at that moment in time, the Women's Policy Forum and also, the Women's Public Policy Forum and also Black Lives Matter were really, really, really concerned, not just about the kind of encounters that Black men and women were having on the street, but the fact that as soon as you, Waukesha Wilson, as soon as you, Renisha Bride, are in an encounter where you are in custody, you're having an interaction that's sustained longer than, the 12 seconds that it took to kill Tamir Rice. What gets triggered is, here's a body that's available for harm. Here's a body that's available for destruction. And then the flip side of it is the history of language by police agencies that no human was involved. And this was within policy. And so I think perhaps differently than some of those other terms, I like the biomedical racialization because it's so much an answer to an account of what movements are trying to think through. Those particular texts, particularly the jazz one, has incredible things to say about how people rebel at these very micro kinds of levels, people who don't seem like they have the capacity to rebel, And so I love that text. I love the Austin Clarke one. I love the Anarcha Project. And what I did was I read them as political theory. I was trained by Avery Gordon and some other really quite wonderful and fantastic people, but she has this concept in her first book on the ghostly in the sociological imagination, where she talks about, in the social sciences, the way that people understand complex phenomena is kind of like graphs on a table. It's got a level of dimensionality to it. But the way that literature approaches complexity is kind of everything that would fall off the table. So the things that they're so dense in terms of dimension that you can't actually always see and touch them and hold them. They're kind of moving. And so I think because being trained by people like Gordon, right, I take literature very seriously. I treat it as a set of texts that offer principles that you can look at and you can identify with and you can learn from, and that you could deconstruct and in a systematic way apply them to other kinds of phenomena, other kinds of cultural moments. So there's a really beautiful essay in Feminist Formations by Nicole Alexander Floyd. She insists that there is a politics and a real activity and a real embodiment that's necessary for Black feminism. It's not that Black feminist thought or kind of like the race for theory is not something that we should be doing. That's not what she's saying. She is saying there are real stakes in real people's bodies that stand in the middle to either be marshaled and then forgotten, So there's that kind of dynamic that happens. And then there's this other one that I think I was more trying to go towards, which is kind of like what Matt Richardson calls a feminism that can show up with you at the welfare office. And for me, that combined with the Nicole Alexander Floyd idea in that Feminist Formations essay is more what I'm trying to have my feminist practice lean towards. It's not an automatic thing or something that happens in every instance, but that is kind of what my ideal is something that's active in the world. Because I think for me, what's most valuable and important about Black feminist thought is the way that it mobilizes people to move and to think about their capacity to move. Part of it for me is being willing to say out loud that what we're living under is not good enough. Another thing is trying to make sure that the space for reflection and for ciphering it out is not something that only people in these offices at universities and colleges do. I love Black Twitter and some parts of social media discourse because it's really, really clear that people have kind of said, like, F it. I don't have to be at a university to have access to these books. I can be any place on the planet and I can be thinking these thoughts in a way that's really profoundly influential to that person themselves, but also to other people out in the world.